Hey everybody, welcome again to yet another episode of Know the Pro with Sabu Satsha by Marshall Music. Today I have the pleasure of sitting with Mr. Devine Mitchell. A lot of you have asked, does he ever speak? Well, he's here today and you'll probably get to hear his voice for the first time. Devine, thanks for coming in, man.
No problem, man. Thanks for the invite.
A lot of people say you're quiet, but they don't know you the way I know you. He's not quiet at all.
I don't understand this quiet thing. It's always people that's always talking all the time that say I'm quiet.
That's true, because they never keep quiet to hear you say something.
I saw a quote that says, where this guy was, I think it was one of these actors, famous actors,
Right.
where someone asked him, why are you so quiet all the time? He said, the same reason you're always talking all the time.
Devine, let's get down to what we're here for. People have asked about you, and finally I've gotten you here. Just a short biography, discography of Devine Mitchell. Who is Devine Mitchell?
Devine Mitchell is a musician, songwriter, father, husband. I've been active in the music industry for the last 10, 15 years, I would say. Across genres, but mainly in the gospel genre. Most people would know me from the gospel space, but I'm not a gospel purist. I just consider myself as a musician, a child of God. And yeah, my journey in music started when I was in school, 12 years old, church. I'm a church boy, church muso, that's where it started for me. And yeah, played with different people, one thing led to another. Met you guys along the way, met amazing musicians along the way, and I'm still meeting new people as we go along.
Yeah.
We've done some awesome stuff together over the years, and yeah, it's just been an amazing journey for me in the last 10, 15 plus years. And yeah, that's where we are now in the middle of COVID.
Right. Well, Devine, maybe a lot of people will agree with me, but I think when we first heard you play guitars in our type of contemporary type of gospel, I'd probably say that was the first time maybe we heard the guitar really, because I think for a long time back then, maybe let me say, guitarists have been hiding in the background and playing a line there and a line here, but when I started working with you, or even before then, when I heard you, I thought, oh my gosh, the guitarist is on stage and he's playing. I can hear him. I can tell you what he was playing.
Wow.
No, honestly, I mean, you came in, you've changed the game, and you inspired a lot of guitarists now, and I think they'll agree with me. I don't know, Devine, what were you listening to growing up? What were you checking? What did you feed your ears with to make you the guitarist that you became and still are and still offering till today?
I, like, coming from church, I just really loved the guitar. And then I started listening to a lot of other genres. At some point I was quite deeply into the jazz stuff. So my influences were the leader tenors. My absolute favorite at the time was Paul Jackson Jr. because he was so versatile. He was playing different genres. He was playing pop music. He was 90% of the R&B records of the day. He was probably featured on. He played for Michael Jackson when he was 16 years old. Just versatile. I think that's what I admired the most about him, is that he could just jump in, put on any hat and be playing jazz and then playing pop music, playing gospel. So he was sort of the top guy that I admired at the time, but there were others as well. There's obviously Jonathan Butler, there's Jado huge influence. There's Jimmy Ludlu. Obviously, when he came out, there was this big craze around him. There's George Benson, obviously. There's Norman Brown. There's Lee Ritenour. There's so many guitarists, man, that we listen to abroad and locally as well. So I just devoured music at the time. So I didn't really say that I wanted to play a specific style of music. I just think me ending up in gospel was just incidental, because music was just music for me, whichever genre it was.
Right.
So I just listened to a lot of stuff, and like I said, I sort of had a stronger connection with the guys that were playing gospel. You guys, all of the guys that I met along the way. So yeah, that's how I ended up in the circles that I ended up, and it's been an awesome journey for me.
It has, man, and I think I came into the industry when you were probably, one of the busiest guitarists I know. You mean there was a time where you played that Malika gig, and that gig was like Thursday to Sunday. Sometimes you did 2 gigs a day.
I was doing everything. At some point, I was every day of the week I was out. So, and it's amazing how industry has grown. You know, like there was a time where people would call me and I wouldn't be available, and people would be like, "Okay, so who else?" And I'd be like, "I'm not sure." But I mean, now there's so many options. I mean, in our space, there's so many guitarists that are killing it. I mean, there's Tsepo, there's Ike, there's Urban, there's a lot of options. I mean, it's not like at some point people were complaining and say, "So who do we call if we can't get you?" You know, and I would be like, "I don't know, call whoever you want." You know, but now I can share a lot of options and say, there's a lot more guitarists in the industry.
Right.
At some point, there was a whole lot of keyboardists,
and
not enough guitarists. But I know now the playing fields are sort of more level across genres, I would say. And even in the gospel space, I mean, there's so many options now. Guys that are just really killing it. There's MZ as well.
Yes.
You know, so I'm happy for that, man. It just means that we've grown as an industry.
Yeah. Speaking of being out every day of the week, Devine, I mean, this is something I saw for myself. You were so busy, and I've seen musicians struggle with the environment catching up with them, or let me say maybe the gigging scene or the business catching up with them. People get involved in drug addiction, people get involved in alcohol abuse, and you've worked, Devine, in environments that sometimes I look at those environments and I say, wow, how did Devine survive there? And you've come this far and you are still you.
Yeah.
What has helped you keep your head calm and not get pulled away by these things happening? So many things, not just so many things happening in the industry.
Obviously, your personal belief system. Like when I mean that, I don't just mean saying, okay, I'm a church boy or I'm Christian or whatever, but just that personal value system where you say that's something I won't do, that's something I won't do, and also just observation, man. I think in my early days of just entering the industry, one of the guys I really looked up to was Dr. Victor. He actually said to me just in passing one day, "You see all these guys that I'm playing with, some of them, they're so talented, super talented, but their heads are not on the right place." And I would see him changing muses from time to time. And that one day, just in passing, he mentioned that he just gave me that young advice to say, you know what, be sober-minded, man, and have a vision, for your life. And at some point, this stage of your life is going to be over. Where you're the man of the moment or whatever, and you'll have to focus on other things like family. And so this is a season. It's the same like in soccer. Messi is not going to be Messi forever.
True.
At some point, and if you, obviously, the decisions you make now decisions you make now is going to obviously have a lasting impact.
True.
So yeah, just be an example. I mean, music is really about, in a way, it's sort of ministry.
Yeah.
And people are looking up to you, not to say that I was better than whoever, but I think by the grace of God, I would say, I didn't get really derailed by a lot of the stuff in our industry. So I don't really have to say it's thanks to my, how can I say?
Intelligence.
My intelligence or how good of a person I am. It's really just the grace of God. And just a conscious decision to say, to recognize danger from afar and be able to say, okay, this I'm going to have to stay away from, because obviously there were many times when I had to make decisions to say, you know what, I'm not going to be in this space. This space is going to end up, this whole scenario is not going to end up well. And I had to distance myself from certain things. And obviously sometimes it also meant that financially to sacrifice, to say, you know what, I'm going to lose some money here, but let me rather remove myself from the situation. Otherwise I'm going to be end up in a bad space, you know. And yeah, I think the sad thing is also looking at other people who are very talented, whose lives were cut short because of lifestyle choices.
Yeah.
Even though they were very talented, but they made wrong lifestyle choices. So
truth be told, actually, in a nutshell, talent alone is not enough.
Talent is never enough, and I'm just happy that I realized that very early. And also I think what helped me is that my background wasn't really always music. I come from a corporate environment, so I had left the job to come into music. And I think a part of that by the book ways of doing things sort of helped me to keep me grounded. My observation was a lot of the musos that were so super talented and are so super talented had no sort of grounding. They sort of came straight from school into the industry, so that and there's so many freedoms in this industry,
right,
you know.
Yeah.
And I think that helped me in a way with that background that I had, you know, working for a boss and having to adhere to times and certain ways of doing things. That sort of grounded me a little bit to have reservations, so sort of control myself, have more self-control, if I can put it that way.
Yeah. Well, that's a topic maybe we might need to have a panel one day with many musicians and chat about. Let's go into the music. Let's dig into the good stuff. Devine, you've played for many years now. You've recorded countless albums. I've worked with you on some. You've done so many other things that I've been watching you on, and I've followed you before I started playing with you, even now that I have played with you. What has your drive been? What has pushed you to last so long in this industry? I'll talk about playing wise especially, and maybe being relevant as well as a musician up until this far.
It's really, I think, your outlook, how you see things. I think initially, when I sort of just became mainstream, if you can put it that way, it was really about me as an instrumentalist. Like, you know how it is.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference between instrumentalist and a musician. Instrumentalist cares about more their instrument and their role in the band. And I think sort of my outlook changed when I thought of the music and me in context of that, not just me playing, being a great guitarist or whatever, but making good music or anointed music, if you want to talk in gospel terms. So that sort of changed my thinking, to say that don't just be the best, but make good music for people. Because I think at some point when I was on stages and I would look at people, I would see what the music really does to them. You know, it makes people either cry or makes them happy, or for some people it's just an escape, you know, from the pressures of life. And that for me is ministry. You know?
Right.
You know, when you go to church and you see people raise their hands and they get lost or whatever, or not even gospel necessarily, any other show, people are just losing themselves for a moment, away from their hectic lives and the challenges of life. And for me, that's a gift. That's how I see music. That's all it is for me. So if you look at it that way, then there's not much room for, the egos and, feeling like, I'm the person, I'm the, whatever. So it's a gift that God gave us, man. Yeah. You can't really impress God with something He gave you.
True. Wow.
So, and He's your biggest observer, your biggest fan. I sort of think of, look at it in a way that we play to an audience of one, with God, really. And we build people up, but ultimately the gift comes from above.
Sure.
And what we do with it is our gift to God.
Yeah.
So what you mentioned about talent, talent is what God gives us, and how we refine it and how we use it to impact others is our gift.
It's our gift back to Him.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Wow, man. This is getting deep. But let's talk guitars.
Yeah.
Man, you played Fender.
Yeah.
You played playing Parker, I think. Just take me through your go-to gear and why you've chosen to play what you're playing now, and how you've made the decision to move from playing a normal guitar as a drummer, when I look at it, to the guitar that you're playing that's funnily shaped.
I was a Fender guy through and through. I think I still am. I think it's one of the most versatile guitars when you're a session musician, because it just fits in the mix if you're doing recorded stuff. And I think maybe for the first 3 or 4 years of my professional music career, I played a Fender. It was my first guitar I bought with my own money. So that was interesting until I don't actually know what made me go for the switch. But I think I played that Parker guitar. It was a friend's guitar, actually. And then I played it for a while, and I fell in love with it. The guy said, he let me play it for, I think, a week or two. And then it sort of grew on me, and I was like, bro, you're not getting this guitar back. How much do you want for it? So I love the acoustic pickup, and I did some sessions with it. The sessions that I did, people loved the sound of it. So I was like,
it works,
I'm not giving it back. I remember I did a session for Mikasa, I think, on the first album.
Yes.
I think the La Vida track. And they wanted an acoustic because it's like it's a Portuguese Spanish type of sound. And I was like, hey, Judah, I don't have acoustic here with me. They actually pulled me out of another rehearsal. I think I was rehearsing with Judith Sipuma, and they were like, please come just lay guitars here for me. And when I got there, he was like, don't you have an acoustic? I was like, no, I don't have, but this guitar hasn't built-in acoustic. So he's like, let's try it out. And then Judah was doing the session, and the other guys were there, and I just played some lines, and they were like, yeah, that's the one. That's what we got. So I was like, in my mind, I'm thinking, no, I'm just laying guides. We're going to redo the guitars. So he was like, no, we're not changing anything. We're keeping this as is. So many people loved the sound of the guitar. I loved the sound of the guitar. It was versatile. I could get a Strat sound out of it. I could get a thicker, jazzy tone out of it. So I was like, well, let me stick with Parker.
Yeah.
And then years later, I'm still playing the same guitar. I still want to go back to Fender at some point, but not right now. Maybe later on. Yeah.
Well, since it's the first time we're speaking to a guitarist on this show, I guess we'll get to talk about effect pedals as well. I've always seen you guys trying to be drummers and leave the pedals to the drummers. But, I know what it's for, but to the normal person at home, aspiring guitarist who sees you guys playing with effect pedals, they see you with a certain type, someone else with a different type. let's talk about an effect pedal. I mean, what is really an effect pedal, and what is it for? Because some of these guitarists do have it as well, and then we hear effects where they're not supposed to be.
Yeah, no, there's this sort of thing in around guitarists, especially seasoned guitarists, that there's this thing that we shouldn't hide behind effects pedals, because they tend to hide your real skill in a way, using a lot of reverb and delays and wah-wahs and stuff like that. So there's sort of this saying that, like if you play clean guitar, it's like, then you're a real guitarist. Like, no, kill the effects, let's hear how you play, because the reverb has a way of hiding our imperfections when we play. So, but talking effects, I mean, obviously, if you're doing sessions, you need effects, you need reverb, you need delay, which is the basic effects. Then obviously the other stuff is EQs and crybabies, all those wah-wah effects and stuff like that. But I took very long to actually adjust, because playing a lot of jazz, a lot of jazz players just play clean guitar. So it took me a while to really get into the whole effects thing, and it was only until I started doing like pop gigs and stuff like that, club gigs, that I sort of, I need to get a distortion pedal and some delays and reverb. So I started with the analog pedals first. Right. But they were a little bit, for what I was doing at the time, they were high maintenance, because you needed to move around with an amp as well to keep your sound consistent, because they would respond differently to different amplifiers. And if you didn't play it through the same amp, you'd have to spend too much time tweaking. So I opted for the digital ones, effects pedals, which worked for me. I think I started on something very cheap, like a Zoom or something. And right now I'm using a Line 6, which I got from Marshall Music.
Hey.
So I'm a Line 6 guy right now. I think the amp models are amazing. And that's where I am, and reverbs, delays, guitarists have so many options, it's about your pickups as well. Which pickups are you using on which guitar? And obviously you've got a whole lot of options from amp models to choose from, and digital is sort of brought up to analog in a way, that you almost can't tell the difference anymore. Some people will say, no, I can still hear the difference. For most people, it's hard to tell nowadays, using digital effects units versus the analog. So, and then amp models is obviously, I love the sound of Fender still, which is sort of like the industry standard. And then I love orange amps as well. I actually love orange amps more than I love Fender.
Really? So, Mr. Marshall, I hope you're listening. Devine loves orange amps more than Fender's. Orange amps. If I'm not mistaken, orange amps live here.
Oh, they
this
live
is where
here.
they sleep. But anyway, then when it comes to playing and using these effects, I sometimes find that guitarists can be very irritating if they're not sure what they're doing.
Look, for me, there's a production element to that as well. It's not just about how talented you are. Obviously, that's now that's more like technical stuff, like reverbs and how much of reverb I'm going to use. And we fight with engineers when we're in studio about how much reverb. Like, no, kill your reverb, I'll use mine, and stuff like that. Or you either have to, but then it changes the quality of your sound, of your patch, and stuff like that. So it's a compromise. So I have patches that I use, for example, when I know I'm going to go into recording, and the engineer sort of wants more control over the session. I'll probably push my reverb down to maybe 15, 18%. My delays, sometimes I'll have to kill them, or very minimal delay kind of thing, so that whoever's mixing the project will have more freedom. And then other engineers, just like, whatever you give me, man, I'll work with it, So it's contextual, so wherever you are, you have to sort of make those decisions. And then if you're in a hall that has like a lot of echo, I would just kill my reverbs because you don't really need it.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I think those are just things that a lot of maybe guitarists still need to find out or explore. And then obviously if you're in a dead room, then you need reverbs. Like if you're tracking guitars and the room is quite quiet. So yeah, it's a whole field of exploration.
And also what I'm hearing from you is basically you sit with your pedal. It's not something you pull out from a shop and then you pull out from a shop on Friday and then Sunday morning you want to try all the patches on the Sunday morning service.
Yeah.
You go through all the patches in that pedal. And we're wondering what's going on. Who's that extra band member we've booked? We thought we have a guitarist, a drummer, a bass player, a keyboard player. But there's someone else.
Yeah. No, I know guitarists. I was also one of them at some point. We were quite noisy until we learned, okay, you can actually put a noise gate on this thing and a compressor and all of those things. So it's about spending time, obviously, with the unit, and it's a production thing.
Right.
You know, you need to know, okay, how much reverb and drive and stuff you need on a certain patch and how to control it. So I sort of play with a volume pedal, you know.
Yeah.
So it's sort of to control, because I'm very sensitive to dynamics.
Yes,
you know.
no.
I've heard a lot of guitar guys complain about guitarists that this guy is so loud. You know, I'm not really a loud, guitarist, so I'm always
You're loud when you need to
sort
be.
of yeah, when I need to be, but I'm always conscious of the dynamic element and sort of blend in. And sometimes a lot of guys would say, "We didn't hear you, man. We didn't hear you." And then I'm thinking, according to me, I was quite loud. You know?
Yeah.
And then my only fight is with studio sessions when you play your heart out and then when you hear the track and then you can hardly hear the guitars.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then in a live context, there's always a problem with, guitarists are always sort of overlooked.
Yeah. It's the drums, kick, snare, drums.
Guitarist, okay, yeah, we cool.
Guitarist, okay, no, that's fine. No, yeah.
So yeah, that's effects. I love effects, man. So always playing around with different reverbs. I think the good thing about the season we're in now, getting to record a lot more guitars at home, is that I'm able to experiment. Not like in studio, it's sort of more rushed. We have to do stuff by the clock. Now it's just like you can take your time, auditioning different effects and getting the sound that you think will fit with a specific song.
Yeah. Well, speaking of production, Devine, quickly before we go to an end, we're running out of time. You spoke about production, and I know you're a producer, you're a songwriter, a composer, a musical director. You've done it all. And you've worked on your project as well.
Yeah.
Let's talk just quickly a bit about your projects.
Yeah, so around 2017, it's actually been a while. I've been writing songs for as long as I've been playing, basically. It's sort of something that ran parallel, but the songwriting thing has always been something I kept to myself.
Right.
Till eventually, people started hearing some of my songs and be like, "That's nice. Don't you want to write me a song?" I'm like, "Me? Write you a song?" So eventually I started giving, people songs, and some more prominent people started asking for songs, like Gambatas, Dukozo, Mahalia, a whole lot of people, Nazimu, the guys at Spirit Music. And I started giving people songs, and around 2016, 17, my wife sort of also was giving people these songs. You're doing your own project. You are a songwriter. So, and at the time, I did have songs that were just laying there that I didn't give to anyone. And I decided, let me do a featured project and feature some of the singers that I admired at the time. And I did about 12 or 14 tracks. Recorded that album, and some of the tracks are already available.
Yep.
And some of them are not yet released, actually. And I'm always working on music, new music, and hopefully soon I'll release them. You know how we are always analyzing.
Oh, yeah. It's not right yet.
Analyzing, it's not right yet. So that's sort of my downside, you know, analyzing the music until you feel you're happy with it. But that's what I've been up to, man.
Yeah.
If I'm not on stage, I'm writing for either for other people or for shelving songs for the right moment.
The right moment. Apart from that, also, I understand you're teaching as well.
Yeah, recently started teaching. Well, teaching has always been sort of one of my passions, because I feel like it's, you know, in my mind, it's sort of like a waste if you like do all this amazing stuff and you don't have a system of handing over to somebody, you know, that comes after you. So I think it's sort of very sad if you've been this great musician and you never imparted all of it to somebody else. You know? It's about legacy, I think, if you want to call it that way, or succession, or you need to be able to pass on the baton to somebody, you know. And I think I'm sort of like in that phase now, where I'm not so prominent on the gig scene, because I mean I've sort of done it all, you know. Although I still love playing, but there's other things that sort of grabbing my attention now in the music space, like writing and production, and now recently teaching again. So I've initially taught as well, taught music at a school, and now I'm back to sort of like full circle, if I can put it that way, where I am teaching again, teaching young kids from scratch to play, and just, you know, the miracle of watching somebody know nothing about music to be able to play some chords. I mean, it's for me, it's amazing. You know, it's the same feeling of like being on stage, you know, and playing for people and seeing them light up.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing now. Not on a full-time basis, so it's still sort of half-half. Still doing music, still sessioning, and then part-time teaching for me.
Part-time teaching. Well, maybe some advice to youngins at home, young guitarists, young producers, young songwriters.
Read, man, read as much as possible. I'm starting to read like a lot of autobiographies of other musicians, you know, both local and abroad, just to see what their journey was like, you know, and how they transitioned between the different spaces in music, because the gig economy is not the only space in music.
True.
You know, we can produce music. There's guys like that we all looked up to, like Babyface, you know. We all think that he vanished. He didn't vanish. He's just doing other stuff in music. He's writing music for other artists, producing music. And I mean, even if you listen to their music now, it's still timeless. They're grooming other artists to sort of become the hit makers of our time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just like I said, do your best. Give us the best that you have right now. Because obviously we're all transitioning, you know, changing from spaces to spaces. And I mean, look at, we would have thought that our industry would shut down because of a thing like COVID, you know. And most of us have done some amazing stuff that we took for granted, you know. So, like I said, share what you have to the best of your ability, collaborate with other musicians, learn from other musicians, and also speak to the people that have gone before you. You know? Celebrate them. I think in our country we don't do enough of that. You know? I think that's one thing I admire about our American counterparts. They really celebrate the guys that have gone, that have sort of paved the way, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and there's something that needs to be carried over, and the whole point of it is to make every generation of musicians better. They need to be better, not just musically, but also in terms of mindset. You know? Stuff like how you handle finances and invest in property when you are at the peak of your career. And make good financial choices, lifestyle choices, family choices. Because I think if I could advise up and comings is obviously put first things first. You know, your family. There are certain things that at the end of your life, you're not going to count how many gigs you did. You're going to think about your wife, your family, those are the things that really matter. So that's what I mean when I say put first things first. And music is a gift to humanity, and heal the world with your music.
Well, everyone, that was Devine Mitchell, just with a huge amount of knowledge. There's a wealth of knowledge that comes from him. I think I still need to have a panel here and talk about other topics in the music industry. Mm-hmm. But you heard it from the man himself, Devine Mitchell. This was Know the Pro with Sabu Satsha by Marshall Music, and you can catch Devine on his social handles.
It's just Devine Mitchell. I'm on Insta, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, although I hardly post, but I'm there from time to time.
So, that was Devine Mitchell. So his social media handles are at Devine Mitchell, pretty much everywhere.
The same. All the
same everywhere. Until we see you again, possibly next week. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Peace out.